The equinox means that the sun is aligned with the equator and is now in harmony. So we are finally kind of at the equal point. We will soon be having longer days than nights. But right now we are coming into a perfect balance. Nowruz is really this holiday. It's about the kind of the defeat of light over darkness. Ostera is as well. Easter will be occurring soon, which I'll talk about. But right now, the equinox and the start of Aries season is the beginning of the new age of light. So you get a bit of an on-ramp into like the kind of madness and excitement and maybe mania of what's to come. Welcome, sex symbols of all shapes, stripes, and species, to yet another banger of a horoscope episode here at David Odyssey headquarters. Welcome to Heavenly Bodies, yet another trip through the cosmos with David Odyssey. We have quite a lot to cover because we will be talking about Aries season, which starts on March 20th. There's a lot to say because this does feel epochal, because if you've listened to the previous episodes leading up to this point, you know that this is a big Aries year. And when I say it's a big Aries year, I do not mean that it is necessarily a big year for people who were born under the sign Aries, though it is. We know that we are entering at least a 3-year saga in which the sign Aries will have a powerful impact upon the collective consciousness. And in your own chart, that sign is really activating a lot of tests and trials. As I've stated earlier, and I recommend you listen to the Saturn and Neptune and Aries episodes and the Saturn and Neptune conjunction episode, which was, I thought, quite special. Anyways, as I've recently stated, Saturn and Neptune have both quite recently entered the sign Aries. Saturn has not been here since the late 90s, since Spice Girls era. Neptune has not been in Aries since like Charles Darwin was alive. Okay. So Saturn is the planet of authority. It is the gatekeeper, the boss, the kind of inner mommy or daddy or president or whatever that sort of dark overlord or master is for you. And Neptune is the sort of planet of, it is the archetype of dreams and these sort of larger collective currents that are flowing through our imagination. It deals a lot with our collective addictions, where we get ideas and feelings and how they're moving through. So they're both in Aries, which means it means Aries, the first sign of the zodiac, the sign of new beginnings, initiation, fire, creation. It also, Aries as the first sign of the zodiac, I've talked about this before, it has that sort of, Aries is the hero who is being called to fight a villain. So Aries, we're thinking a lot of the Luke Skywalker, Katniss Everdeen archetype, and there must be a villain. Without a Darth Vader, Luke Skywalker can kind of cruise around, and I've talked about this on previous episodes, but it's like the issue with the last 15 years of Pixar movies is it's like, great, there's only so much like inner work one can do, but you need a Jafar. You know, the story isn't really going to go very far if you're just doing the inside out thing of like, these are my feelings. Having Saturn, which is the planet of the authority figure, the tyrant, the dominator, and Neptune, which deals a lot with this collective obsession or addiction in Aries, does mean that we are in, and I don't think you need a particularly brilliant astrologer to tell you this, but this is a period of conflict where things are really coming to a head. I was listening to this interview with Abby and Alana from Broad City, and they were talking about how like in 2010, tech bros were just these kind of like benign weirdos on the fringes who are just like drinking Soylent and programming. And it's like, oh no, now they actually are full-fledged supervillains. Like they are actually oligarchs. So we are in that's where we are now. Like we're in a very clear moment of good versus evil, conflict, etc. All of that is relevant during Aries season because we will be having a pileup of planets already in Aries as shit's going down. So the sun will be in Aries from the 20th through, I believe, yes, through March 20th through April 19th. Mars will be entering Aries. It's already here. It's going to be here until April 18th. Mercury will be entering Aries on April 14th. So we have a lot of planets in Aries, which means that things get really activated. Mars belongs in Aries. Mars is the planet of war, conflict, conflagration, creation, destruction, ego, sexuality. So all of those things aren't necessarily bad. And when it's in Aries, Mars has this thing of, okay, the winter's over, let's go, let's make shit happen. Mercury will be coming out of a Mercury retrograde in Pisces. That will be wrapping up, I believe. Yeah, Mercury is newly direct as of the 20th. So Mercury is finishing up in Pisces. Mars and Mercury and the Sun are going to be freshly in Aries. Venus is already in Aries. So Mercury and Mars are really saying, like, I want to make shit happen. I already had the winter to think about my feelings and think about, my traumas from my bat mitzvah. Like, let's go already. So all of that is good. The issue is they will be making contact with Saturn and Neptune. Mars will be hitting Neptune April 13th, Saturn April 19th, which, by the way, is the Ayatollah Khomeini's birthday. Just do with that what you will. Mercury will be hitting Neptune April 16th, and Mercury will be hitting Saturn April 20th. The Sun will be hitting Saturn on March 22nd and Neptune on March 25th. What do you do with all of those? You're having these happening late March and mid-April into the end of Aries season. As these planets are hitting Saturn, there's going to be some sort of an interpersonal and likely global face-off with authority. So Mars versus Saturn is very teenager versus adults. I bring these up because sometimes these are necessary. I think we know in the world where it's exciting and necessary that there is an uprising against tyranny or the authoritarian. On an interpersonal level, it'll be up to you to know when this is necessary or when you are having a blowout with your boss or boyfriend and you're really actually screaming at your father. That's the issue with Mars and Saturn. And Mercury and Saturn, by the way, which is, there's all these things I want to do, but you're getting in the way. And it's like, it has to be up to you to know if that's real or bullshit. If it's real, it's necessary. A lot of the destruction that Mars and Saturn will wreak is about the necessary destruction of the father. It needs to happen. There needs to be some sort of a change in authority. Okay. But when it's, and this is where Neptune comes in. Neptune rules delusion, addiction, insobriety, blurred arenas. And having Neptune and Saturn and Mars all getting messy together, along with the Sun and Mercury on these points, you're going to need to know what's on you. I once had a client tell me, wow, this is when I had just started my career. She was like, it's weird. Sometimes when I drink, I black out and then I get into fights with cops. And she had a very strong Neptune Mars placement. And it was one of those things where it was like, okay, so that's on you to deal with. Like, cops bad, I get it, but maybe there's some of your own shit to deal with here. The good news about these meetings, all of these planets in Saturn really do want to blast forward. No one wants to stop. This is not to say, like, you need more time to heal and deal. It's just saying if we can call your bullshit out now, the rest of things are going to get going. Mars, Saturn, Mercury, Sun in Aries, it's very much, we've already done the spring cleaning, let's roll. We got shit to do, let's unveil things. So I am not saying like we need to stop and reflect. It's not that. It's just make sure you know who you're yelling at. By the way, I last week snapped at someone in school and I could watch it happening. It was crazy. It was one of those things like waking up during anesthesia where it was like, I have enough awareness to see that I'm about to become a crazy bitch, but I don't have enough to stop myself. And I did apologize afterwards, and I do feel like since apologizing, that person and I are actually quite close. So that's an example, a close one, of the Mars creation destruction thing. Sometimes destruction is necessary for creation. Sometimes it isn't. So that'll be up to you to kind of negotiate. Let's also do some big picture because in the spirit of it being Aries season, I think I'm kind of like jumping in and attacking. So let's just catch up a little. The season begins on March 20th. On March 19th, we will have a new moon in Pisces. New moon in Pisces is going to be wrapping up Pisces season. So if we just want to think about the sequence of things, March 19th is really, the new moon is this kind of optimistic jewel in the darkness. You can't see the moon. She's about to start a new cycle. So the new moon is really about, we are in the dark part of the closure of the Pisces era, which we've talked about on this podcast. Look at the fruits of your rewards, savor them. These are the final moments of the winter darkness. I know that that's not necessarily applicable if you live in New York City or Canada, etc., but you get what I'm saying. We then come to March 20th, which is the spring equinox. It also is the marking of the Persian holiday of Nowruz and Ostara. The equinox means that the sun is aligned with the equator and is now in harmony. So we are finally kind of at the equal point. We will soon be having longer days than nights. But right now we are coming into a perfect balance. Nowruz is really this holiday. It's about the kind of the defeat of light over darkness. Ostara is as well. Easter will be occurring soon, which I'll talk about. But right now, the equinox and the start of Aries season is the beginning of the new age of light. So you get a bit of an on-ramp into like the kind of madness and excitement and maybe mania of what's to come. Okay. Now, let's talk about some of the holidays, and then we'll get into some of the other big events happening. With Aries season, we get some of the greatest hits. So we get Nowruz. We also get Passover and Easter. I wanted to just speak a little bit about the relevance of both of these. Easter is amazing. Easter will be, I believe, April 5th. Easter is great because I don't really have to explain much here. Easter is about the resurrection, okay? Easter is obviously, you get bunny rabbits who are horny and are wanting to have a lot of sex, which is very much in line with the spirit of Aries. But the big thing about Easter is the idea of the return and coming back to life. And the other thing that I wanted to point out about, especially when we think about March, the end of March, as Jupiter and Mercury both go direct. Jupiter has been in retrograde for a few months. Mercury's been in retrograde for about a month. They're both going to be going direct. Jupiter's in Cancer, Mercury's in Pisces. Mars will be in Pisces for the end of March as well. They're all going to be making nice trines to Jupiter. So Mars and Mercury are in Pisces, which is a water sign. They're going to be making trines to Jupiter, which is in Cancer, a water sign. If you think about the resurrection, you think about the idea of the friends and family, the Magdalene, the apostles, and company going back to the tomb and awaiting the rising of their best friend, their best pal, to come back to life and start a whole new era and show them something. And there's something about the end of March that as you're having these water sign trines, that's very much about get the band together, get the crew together. So A way that I would really think about the end of April as we're going into the early spring holidays and before Aries season starts to get really cuckoo and we're having these Mars Saturn kind of showdowns is who do we, as Cher says at the end of Moonstruck, like I need my family around me right now. Who do we want there for the resurrection? And holidays do this, but I think there's a way to be intentional about this. If we're thinking about these spring holidays, and I have not even gotten into Passover and just you wait, but if we're thinking about these spring moments as these awakening and resurrections, I know that holidays can be really exhausting because they really do. At least if you think about the winter holidays, it's a lot of like, I have to drag my ass back home and rehash a lot of old drama or old dynamics, etc. Fine. This spring, for the spring holidays, I think your assignment is a bit more, if there is a resurrection and a revivification, say that 3 times, who do we want around us as things are about to launch? And this April will be pretty cuckoo in terms of world events, and I also think interpersonally. So I would think about who do you want to be having these conversations with at the end of March and early April about not just intentions, but about I feel like things are going to change. What do you guys see going on for me? Where do I need some breakage? Am I going to be okay? Let's like really talk this through. So I would just think about resurrection that way and think about like who's present for the resurrection. And also like, I don't know, there's something about the Pisces Cancer trines that's very much about like who's going to wash your feet, who's going to kind of like fix your hair when you come out of the sarcophagus, who's going to put a pair of sunglasses on you because the sun is too bright. We're thinking about the transition into the light, which at first can be very difficult. It's like, whoa, it's a shock. Okay. April 1st through 9th, I wanted to just say Passover, it's always a gag. Listen, for an astrologer, for a Jewish astrologer, Passover it's always, I'm never going to get sick of this. In astrology, and we'll do an episode on ages of astrology, we're entering, as you know, the age of Aquarius. The Egyptians, there's something called ages in astrology, which are these kind of 2,000-year sagas. The Egyptians, the ancient Egyptians, ruled the age of Taurus. They worshipped a bull god. That was the time in which bulls tilled the land and allowed for the agricultural society to rise. Bulls always are associated with paganism, the bull on the altar, the bull representing the crescent moon, bull gods, bull as fertility. The rise of the Hebrews, who took a ram and smeared its blood on their doors during the 10 plagues, initiated the dawn of the age of Aries, which is the dawn of monotheism, Aries the One. The conflict between Moses, Aries, and Pharaoh, Taurus, it's a gag, right? So there's a lot of, you can do a lot there astrologically. What I would say about Passover is this. In the Passover story, God says to Moses, let's go tell the Israelites, let's go tell the Hebrews who I am and that I'm going to liberate them. And God has Moses tell them, and they're so exhausted from building the pyramids and they're so oppressed and broken down that they can't even hear it. It's just not going to hit them. And so God and Moses change tactics immediately and go on the offensive and decide to obsess over Pharaoh and confronting Pharaoh and the plagues. And it's necessary. We know that. We understand that through this sort of saga, the Hebrew people come to their redemption and their liberation. And it is kind of the central defining climax of the 5 books of Moses. Fine. There is another aspect to this, which is when God has Moses do magic in front of Pharaoh and eventually do the plagues, those are because magic and plagues and spectacle are what Pharaoh understands. The magic and the plagues and wonders are not for Moses' people. They are for Pharaoh and the Egyptians. We're understanding that this face-off and this sort of tete-a-tete between God and Pharaoh, they're probably more similar than they are different. God is really playing at Pharaoh's level. And, the Egyptians believed the Pharaoh to be God. They didn't believe there's Pharaoh, then there's the gods. Pharaoh was God. So we're seeing in this story, there's already something going on between bitter enemies or sworn nemesis who we're the monotheists, we're nothing like you polytheist Egyptians. We're probably more alike than we are different. One of the core issues of borderline personality disorder is this: I can't face what's in me, so I need to put it on others and then split it onto them. The story here, we know that obviously some conflict is necessary towards freedom and liberation and redemption. It's not to say that things should have just continued the way they had in Egypt. We know that this led to some great marvels and wonders. We also know that it did not need to be this drawn out and that there was a huge amount of suffering for all involved, including the Egyptians. We are witnessing this happening on the global scale. There are quite a few sworn international enemies right now who, if you look at the protest movements going on within those countries, it's obvious that they're pretty much having parallel crises and can't even recognize that. On an insider level, I think this just really applies to everything that's going on with Aries season, which is, what are the conflicts which are necessary for liberation and redemption? And what are those that are about this sort of obsession with proving oneself as better than or different than one's possible equal or one's peer? And what's interesting about Moses is that Moses grew up among the royal family and then rejoined his people, the Israelites. So Moses has this very classic insider-outsider quality. That is critical. That ability to bridge, to quote Donnie Darko, to quote Kitty Farmer, I am the only person here who can bridge the parent-teacher divide. But that ability to bridge or to be of two kinds, as much as this story is about this definition of peoplehood and you're our nemesis and we are going to break away, Moses is of both. And Moses even says, my people can't hear me. They're not going to listen to me. So at least I can speak the Pharaoh's language. That's critical here, because I hate when liberals do this thing of like, we should be reaching across the aisles. Those people who want to kill us and shoot us and take away our rights. If only we could reach across and share a hand. I think that's very 2016 or 2017. And I think we're in a new world order and shit's going down. But if there is that ability to be a little of both or to speak both languages, that is a gift, and that is what makes for a great protagonist. That is what makes for a great Katniss Everdeen or a Chihiro. It's someone who's been in and out. Okay, you got it. All right. I wanted to share a few more events. Venus will be spending the final days of March in Aries. Again, Venus in Aries is very warrior woman. It is very Xena, Sporty Spice, Buffy. It's very much in line with this sort of Aries spirit of get the fuck out of my way. Then on March 30th through April 24th, Venus will be in Taurus. Venus is the planet of love, artistry, beauty, visibility, and Venus rules Taurus. Just as Mars rules Aries, each planet has signs for which they have a natural kinship or sense of this is where I belong. So when Mars is in Aries, those Martian themes of maybe aggression, but also drive and fire are activated. When Venus is in Taurus, the Empress is returning to the fields, where she gets to go full Kirsten Dunst, Marie Antoinette. The thing about the spring is this, and this is especially true, like, I can say this for gay guys. I hate us. Like, I hate to say this, but like, this is the truth. Gay men spend the winter working out obsessively and awaiting the moment in which their Speedo, which they special ordered in January from Australia, finally arrives, and they can begin to dream of how they will unveil it victoriously at Reese Beach come Memorial Day. The unveiling, in less banal terms, of our efforts throughout the winter, and that can be more about our intentions, the things that we were kind of chipping away at in the studio. There is something about Venus in Taurus which wants to say there should be some gratification and enjoyment for what has been laid out and what has been done. Sometimes when I have, and I'm sure my producers will love this, and trust me, we will be discussing this on future episodes, but, you know, sometimes when I've taken psychedelics, or just if I'm having like a big moment on the dance floor, there is a moment of really being able to like thank my previous selves and say like, I'm so grateful that I worked so much, or oh my God, I'm looking back on how much I was striving and punishing myself and all of the grinding. And I'm so grateful that I bought a ticket to this party. And I'm so grateful that I bought these drugs, whatever that is, because I can enjoy it in this moment. Venus in Taurus is really about that. So I just want to say, you know, as all of the Martian drive and fire and push is happening, as we're coming out of the thaw of the winter, Venus in Taurus is really saying like, great, we've done the spring cleaning. Let's lay out some shit on the altar. Let's put things out on the mantle. If you look, actually, you know, this goes really nicely with Nowruz, because Nowruz and Passover. Nowruz and Passover are they're such beautiful holidays because they're about these table arrangements. Nowruz, you put, you know, there's the apples and the light and then the pomegranates. Passover, you have this very intricately organized Seder plate. Venus in Taurus is a lot about that. So I want to say it's not just about like do. There is this sense of what have I done, and let's really appreciate it. This is Venus in Taurus is very much, this is the body, like look at it world, which is why I do think the Speedo unveiling event will be happening. But more than that, I just think it's, as things are getting jacked up with Aries, we can really enjoy like what's being presented and what's being produced. And that'll feed really nicely into Taurus season on the 19th. April 2nd, we will have a full moon in Libra. Libra is the opposite sign of Aries. That means that when the sun is in Aries, it is illuminating onto a moon that on that day or days, if you're doing werewolf math, it'll be those 3 days, will be in Libra. Libra is, and this is not me, this is a quote of other astrologers, Libra is known as the nemesis of the zodiac, or the mirror of the zodiac. Aries, this is me, this is my mission. Libra is the thing that we need to face. Libra deals with relationships. It deals a lot with others. Libra deals a lot with the game itself. Libras, I've written about this for Nylon. If you've watched any All-Stars season of Drag Race, it's always a Libra who's going to quit, because Libras are very good at seeing the game and seeing, okay, this is what it takes to win the game. That's fine. But if the game is rigged, I'm fucking out of here under no circumstances. A full moon in Libra at this moment of conflicts and conflagration, but also really the spring optimism. A full moon in Libra is very good at showing us what the mission parameters are, what the matrix is, what the kind of objective is of this movie that we're in right now. So this is a really good moment of, as much right now in Aries season as you're wanting to kill, do, drive. I want it all now. I want to burn through it all. The Libra full moon is very good at saying, we are going to see the full scenario and kind of lay out where it's all going. And that includes what the conflicts are. So I think this is a really good time. Full moons are already pretty jacked up. I don't think that this needs to be like an inner contemplative, meditative full moon. It's a bit more though of like, all right, let's lay this shit out. Like, here we go. It's almost like if you were an actor about to do an award season campaign and you're like, these are the gauntlets to come. This is where it's going to get greasy. This is who we got to face. So I would think about it that way, because April will be pretty manic. Like I said, having a stellium, which is a cluster of planets in Aries, especially those planets, there is going to be a lot of push. And I think this is an opportunity to deal. What's interesting is, as we come to the end of Aries season, so on April 17th, we will have a new moon at 27 degrees Aries. That means that the sun and moon will be aligned in Aries in its final degrees. Degrees can be interesting in astrology, and I'll just bring it up. If we want to think about, every sign has 30 degrees, which are these kind of ticks that help us measure a planet's progress through the sign. And there's different ways of looking at them. Different degrees have different tarot cards that correspond to them. There's a lot you can do. But if you want to think about the evolution of Aries over 30 degrees, those early degrees are going to be a lot about, I'm a hero, I have a lot to prove, I have to take down Darth Vader, ... As we get towards the end of Aries, we are coming to the final evolution of this sign, which deals a lot with wisdom, earned optimism, a desire to be a warrior for others and to be a heroic force in a true way for others. And as this new moon goes down at 27 degrees Aries, it's going to be coming in contact with an asteroid which has been in Aries for a while, and that asteroid is known as Chiron. Chiron was the centaur, who taught the Greek heroes, including Hercules and Jason, the healing arts. He taught them the arts of medicine. And many of the Greek heroes came to Chiron at this point early in their careers, when they yet had many obstacles and wonders before them, to learn wisdom, patience, mastery, and healing. As we will be wrapping up Aries season on April 17th with this new moon, we're going to be having, as you know, throughout this period, all of those planets, the Saturn-Neptune conflagrations, are happening at the very early degrees of Aries. We are at the beginning of a new era. I am hoping it's not a new era of World Wars or AI, Battlestar Galactica, Cylon, Terminator, Run for Your Lives. I don't know. But we know that we are at the beginning, that this Aries saga is going to be going on for at least 3 years while Saturn's here, but probably longer while Neptune's here. All of that is at the early degrees of Neptune. This new moon is at the final the early degrees of Aries. This new moon is at the final degrees of Aries. Within all of us is this duality. I think within all of us is optimism, conflict. I can't stop myself. This has to happen. The fire is starting and no one can stop it. And I can see those who are, younger than I or who are new to the game. I can see the parts of me that are wanting to jump in. I can see those who are hungry for conflict or hungry to kind of unveil their rage or their grief. I can see those times when I want to maybe unleash all of that. I have within me this wisdom and these lessons to either teach others or to teach myself. Not in a patronizing way, but in a, okay, I'm excited for the new cycle. I want to give these gifts. I want to be a teacher and a master and a source of medicine. So both of those things are going to be happening at once within each of us and in the world at large. And, you know, I'm trying to, I don't want to get too emotional here, but I just want to say, you know, when the Hebrews are leaving Egypt and headed towards the promised land, we have the first named appearance of Miriam, the sister of Aaron and Moses, who is referred to as Miriam the prophetess. And Miriam leads the exiles through the Red Sea in song and dance and jubilation. That, if we can have some degree of mastery and self-awareness through Aries season, that is the role that we could be taking. There's the young warrior, and then there is the prophetess. And the celebrated prophetess, not the cursed prophetess. So I'll leave you with that. And not only will I see you in Taurus season, but I will see you next week for what promises to be a true trip, another psychedelic ride through heaven, earth, the fungal universe, and the galaxy. If you have enjoyed this episode, please share it. Tell people you know in your life. Rate, give us a glowing encomium wherever you get your podcasts. And I will be here next week. Please subscribe. You can find me, ask us questions, share your Speedo look. I would actually love that. If you're getting your spring bathing suit, I would love a picture at ask@heavenlybodyspodcast.com. You can find me and book a reading with me at davidodyssey.com. Thank you for going on this ride with me. This has really been a blast, and we've only just begun. See you on the other side. Mwah. Thank you for listening. This podcast is part of Pride House Media, hosted by David Odyssey, and produced by Matthew Breen and Josh Rosenzweig, with original music composed by Nell Balaban. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. And while you're there, leave us a rating and review. It really helps others discover the show. I'd love to get to know you, so email questions and visions to ask@heavenlybodiespodcast.com and book a reading with me at davidodyssey.com. Until our next trip, keep looking up.